Hello and welcome to Mary Live. This is Dr. Mark Miravalle. My friends, I want to first wish you a deep and blessed solemnity of the Immaculate Conception. This is, in fact, December 8th, 2025. I also want to make reference to a rather significant document. This is a 23-page document written by the Theological Commission of the International Marian Association. Now, the Theological Commission constitutes some 40 theologians from over 15 countries, and in this document, which is released today, they wish to respectfully request a re-examination of some of the teachings, or the lack thereof, that were present in the Vatican Dicastery of the Doctrine of Faith document, Mater Populi Fidelis, of November 4th, 2025. And I want to say right from the beginning, as a humble member of the International Marian Association, that this response is done with the utmost respect for the magisterium, with respect for the dicastery, for the doctrine of faith, but also in an authentic mode of synodality, of dialogue. And I want to read again, just for clear emphasis, from the 1990 document from the, at that time, Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith regarding the vocation of the theologian. This is Donum Veritatis number 30, and it talks about a theologian's responsibility to bring issues to the magisterium's attention for the sake of greater clarity. The document says, quote, "The theologian has the duty to make known to the magisterial authorities the problems raised by the teaching in itself, in the arguments proposed to justify it, or even in the manner in which it is presented. He should do this in an evangelical spirit and with a profound desire to resolve the difficulties. His objections could then contribute to real progress and provide a stimulus to the magisterium to propose the teachings of the Church in greater depth and with a clearer presentation of the arguments." My friends, I cannot underscore enough how much this is truly the spirit of this document of the International Marian Association's Theological Commission in response to the document of the dicastery. Once again, this is a seeking a greater clarification, a better articulation of what we hold as Catholics regarding Our Lady, especially as articulated in previous statements by the papal magisterium. So please understand that the over 30 points requesting, seeking this type of clarification or re-examination or re-articulation is all within that mode of respect and ultimately for the ultimate improvement of the articulation of what the Church has perennially held about Our Lady. So I'm going to try to, just in approximately 7 points, summarize some of the major elements in this document. It's a fairly readable document. You can get it by going to the International Marian Association's website at International Marian, or even an email for questions at internationalmarian.com. So let's go through a basic summation. And again, it's a readable document. This is not intended to substitute for the over 30 points that the International Commission, again, from 15 different countries, over 40 theologians is what constitutes the Theological Commission within the overall genus of the International Marian Association. Okay, number one, the title Co-redemptrix. The document states, now when I say the document, this will always be a reference to Mater Populi Fidelis from the Dicastery for the Doctrine of Faith. The document states that the title Co-redemptrix is, quote, always inappropriate, and also says that it is, quote, unhelpful because of the need for constant clarification of the term. So let's deal with those individually. To say that the title is always inappropriate would be to intrinsically judge the several times that popes that saints, that mystics since the 14th century have used the title, that those would always be, quote, inappropriate. Now, fortunately, on November 23rd, Cardinal Fernandez, in a exchange with journalist Diane Montagna, clarified whether that's the appropriate term or not. He elaborated on what always inappropriate means. And he essentially said that no, it is limited to the idea that the church will, from this point onward, according to this time period and this discipline, would not be using the title Co-redemptrix in any official texts of the magisterium or official liturgical texts. But he also granted that in informed discussion, the title can be used in prayer groups, in discussion among friends, in devotions. And so it is now newly restricted only to official documents of the papal magisterium. So any informed discussion where it is properly articulated that the title does not mean A, that Mary is divine, or B, that Mary is equal to Jesus, or C, that Mary is in competition with Jesus, but in fact, what the title has always meant and has been explained directly by the popes, particularly Pius XI and John Paul II, that Mary uniquely participated with and under Jesus in the redemption of the world as part of God the Father's plan. And this constitutes that she gave birth to the Redeemer, that secondly, she suffered with the Redeemer, and thirdly, that she offered the Redeemer, Jesus her Son, and her own suffering united as the new Eve with the new Adam for the redemption of the world. So this is what the doctrine has always held. One can make any discussion informed by simply articulating that, and in fact, it becomes a rather excellent opportunity for evangelization on exactly what the role of Our Lady is. Now, the reference of being unhelpful because it has to be explained all the more, the document cites many other truths of the Catholic faith that are in need of perennial discussion, like the 4 conditions for papal infallibility, for example, the hypostatic union of Jesus, the Immaculate Conception, which just read a couple articles in the last couple days saying Catholics still don't understand what they're celebrating on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Many hold that they're going to celebrate the conception of Jesus Christ. So perennial explanation is simply okay. It's a positive. And in fact, it brings forward an ongoing evangelization call, but an ongoing apostolic education, a catechetical moment as well. These are good things. When terms reflect mystery, then it's okay that we have to explain that term for proper usage. So, second point, again, 7 out of the 30 approximate points, is that the document does not accurately portray Mary's redemptive role with Jesus. Now, the document does use references like active participation, but in general, that's left to Mary's yes at the Annunciation. It does not include, again, what the papal magisterium has taught explicitly for 3 centuries. That is, that Mary had a redemptive, an active and redemptive role with and under Jesus, always completely dependent on Jesus, in the salvation of the world. How does she do that? Once again, she gives birth to the Redeemer freely. Then she suffers with the Redeemer for the entirety of her life and the life of the Redeemer. Thirdly, she offers her suffering, which is, in fact, meritorious. And that offering of her suffering, united with the infinite sufferings, the all-dependent, the all-necessary sufferings of Jesus, contributes to the redemption of the world. This is what the papal magisterium has explicitly taught for 3 centuries. This is what the document does not contain. Let's then segue to a third point, which is related to the second, and that is the document seems to either minimize or deny the merits of Our Lady. And the argument is a bit of a misquote of St. Thomas, where St. Thomas is rightly talking about how only the sufferings of Jesus are what we call condign, in the strict sense meritorious. But it leaves out the ongoing discussion of St. Thomas and the Council of Trent, which guarantees in a dogmatic statement that our sufferings are good works that God has placed a supernatural value on, and if we respond in freedom, we too get both grace and a reward. Well, if it's true for us, how much more is it true of Our Lady? Can you imagine God the Father calling this woman to the greatest suffering of any human being in all history? Jesus, remember, is a divine person. He has a human nature. But Mary is the human person that suffers more than anyone else at the design of God. Could you imagine that the Father then says, well, I'm glad that you did that, but your suffering was valueless. This, again, is against the Council of Trent's dogmatic statement of the ability of humans to also merit. We do not merit condignly in strict justice. We merit at least congruously in the order of appropriateness or fittingness. And again, so much of these elements not only affect Our Lady, they affect our role in things like redemption, merit, salvation. The fourth point I want to highlight is the documents, and one of the most grave, I would say, material errors of the document is the direct denial that Mary has a secondary role in the mediation of graces. In three different sections of the document, it states a position that is intrinsically contrary to 4 centuries of papal teaching. And this document goes through and lists all of those references, starting with Pope Benedict XIV in the middle of the 18th century, all the way through to Pope Francis, who called Our Lady the Mediatrix of all graces. So we have 12 popes, 4 encyclical teachings, and a great number of other apostolic references and addresses by the vicars of Christ that tell us that Mary indeed did have a secondary causal role in the distribution of graces. And of course, this is founded first with St. Irenaeus in the 2nd century, who says that Mary is the cause of salvation for herself and the whole human race. But it also develops in history, a history which is a bit incomplete in the document, which includes great saints and theologians like St. Andrew of Crete, St. Germain of Constantinople, St. John Damascene, all in the 8th century, who clearly are teaching this, let alone the St. Bernards, the St. Bernardine of Siena, etc. It is also pointed out in this document, in the response document to the DDF document, that essentially 4 centuries of papal teaching are completely left out of the document, and the document is treating on that very subject. So this, again, is a very concerning absence of the document. And when the document is presenting a position contrary to 4 centuries of papal teaching, as we'll talk about in a moment, this causes great confusion among the faithful. Along with that point, let me also mention that the DDF document continues to say that Mary is not the source of grace, for which the IMA Theological Commission absolutely 100% agrees. Who is claiming that? Did any of those popes claim that? Do we know any sound theologian who thinks not only that Mary's a goddess, but also that Mary originates the grace? So the document seems to have a confusion about the difference between the original action of grace, which always comes from God and directly from our Lord Jesus Christ, versus the distribution of the graces. And remember, if it was God's will that Mary's yes at the Annunciation brought the world Jesus, who's the source of all grace, then it's not a great challenge to believe that Mary would also be the mediatrix of the graces that come as a result of the redemptive process, of which she is such a subordinate member, a human, immaculate, subordinate member. No competition there, but contribution, absolutely. And it's a contribution we are called to do as well. So the document, the IMA response, spends several pages in addressing authentic Catholic theology and authentic papal teaching that, in fact, Mary does mediate each and every grace of the redemption. Quoting perhaps most recently the quote of Pope Benedict XVI, who the DDF document quotes in various manners, when he says in 2007 that there is no fruit of grace that does not come to us except through the necessary instrumentality of the mediation of Mary. So that one statement already is a rather significant correction of what is posed in the document. Number 6, there is in denying mediatrix of all graces, the unfortunate effect that all devotional Marian acts, like Marian consecration, properly understood, like a rosary, like the wearing of the scapular, like being a member of the Legion of Mary or the Militia Immaculatae, the theological, Mariological foundation for all of those acts is precisely her role as the mediatrix of all graces. And so when you remove the doctrinal basis, you're also removing the foundation for things like Marian consecration. Once again, the wearing of the scapular. Lumen Gentium 62 says specifically that Mary, taken up into heaven, she does not lay aside her saving office, but by her manifold intercession continues to, quote, bring us the gifts of eternal life. Well, that's what she's doing, and that's why it's so appropriate that we consecrate ourselves to her. So this has caused great confusion and sadness among Marian groups internationally. Number 7, and I want to emphasize the concern with this, and again, the numbering is not important. If I'm a number off, bear with me. It is the growing credibility issue that is manifesting itself regarding a low-level decision of what still is the magisterium. Now, once again, Pope Leo did not write this document. Pope Leo did not sign the document in an official capacity. He did give permission for it to be released. So that's kind of what many consider to be the lowest level of papal magisterial approval, because, in fact, he approves its release rather than teaching it directly. Now, when you do have a dicastery note that directly contradicts 4 centuries of papal teaching, for example, on the issue of the mediatrix of all graces, the faithful, understandably, are perplexed. Where are we to go? We have, for example, 12 popes saying one thing on the highest level, except for extraordinary magisterium. They're not defining it, but they are saying in papal magisterial encyclical form, which Lumen Gentium 25 says, the manner of speaking also is important in determining the authority of the document. Well, that's as high as it gets without going into extraordinary category for centuries versus a doctrinal note. And again, that causes the confusion. Where should our obedience lie? And of course, it ultimately, from a theological perspective, the authority issue is an easy one, because 12 popes versus a doctrinal note, obviously the popes have a higher explicit papal manner of speaking as we properly apply Lumen Gentium 25. But that's a deep issue and a concerning issue if the credibility factor, this is not a positive development when people would look to the highest doctrinal dicastery in the church and have a certain reservation. That's not a positive development. Finally, the document overall does not reflect a Catholic concept of redemption. Now, let's be very clear on that. And the authors of this 23-page response are clearly recognizing elements that are good in the document. At the same time, there are many repeated references to Christ alone. And that's why many commentators and many Mariologists say it has a certain Protestant flavor to it because, excuse me, Catholic teaching on redemption does not emphasize Christ alone, but rather Christ first and foremost. He is the one mediator. Jesus is the only divine redeemer and mediator. But the Catholic Church has always emphasized that because what Jesus does is so infinitely perfect, he draws us into it. He calls us to participate. When that's denied about the Blessed Virgin in her role of the redemption and even the distribution of graces, both titles, the Co-redemptrix and Mediatrix of all graces, then that does not reflect how we as individual Catholics are also called to participate in redemption. Colossians 1:24, to make up what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ for the sake of his body, which is the church. So Catholic redemption always talks about a new Adam and a new Eve. And the new Eve does not threaten the new Adam. One thing that's also articulated in the conclusion of the document is that this concern between Mary usurping the role of Jesus seems to be more of a theoretical threat or risk than a real threat or risk. One would be hard-pressed to come up with a single example of a reputable Catholic author in the last 3 centuries who says that, or she says that Mary competes with Jesus, that Mary is a goddess, that Mary is on a level of equality with Jesus. That's a challenge to find one author in 3 centuries. And so it begs the question, or raises the question, where is the real risk here? It seems to be more of a theoretical risk than something that would require a statement like this, and unfortunately with elements of omission and inaccuracy in terms of papal teaching. So what do we do with this? This, again, is put forward with love and truth. Love for the papal magisterium, love for the church, no judgment of heart. Of course, this is only theological discourse in authentic dialogue and listening, in authentic synodality, in authentic following through with the responsibilities that the Vatican document, Donum Veritatis, said that theologians are supposed to do, but it's not limited to theologians. The lay faithful are remarkably educated, and many of the lay faithful were the first to call forward concerns about excuse me, about the direction and the contents of this document. So this, of course, is being sent to the Holy Father. It's being sent to the Dicastery for the Doctrine of Faith. I would ask you to pray. Yes, because this is not just a call of head, but also a call of heart. I'd ask you to pray specifically for the heart of our beloved Holy Father, of Pope Leo, that in some way his heart is moved to make a clarification and a positive teaching that represents the beautiful, inspired papal tradition that has led us to this point. So this is not just a pleasantry ending by saying pray. I'm asking you, please, in your rosaries, in your masses, pray for the heart of Pope Leo, that he will be inspired to make the proper changes necessary so that his pontificate will be not only in line with the past pontificates about the beauty of Our Lady and her unique role in the redemption, traditionally known as the Co-redemptrix, her role in distributing graces, the Mediatrix of all graces, and that she does advocate for us, but that's not all she does. And that's what the document seems to imply, that Mary's only the best intercessor in kind of a maternal way, but she doesn't have these other key roles. So please pray, and pray to the Mother for our Holy Father, that she will inspire his heart, which is truly a Marian heart, to make the proper clarification, to make the proper explanation, to make the proper proclamation of the truth of Our Lady. Thank you for staying with us for this program. I wish you a blessed solemnity, and that we may continue to honor and serve the Mother as true sons of her, which gives Jesus great glory and great honor. God bless you all.